What is up, awesome peeps? Brent McCluskey here with Electrified Reviews, and today we are reviewing the Wallke X3 Pro folding fat tire full suspension electric bike. This thing has tons of power. It's got some cool regenerative kind of like braking technology built in to extend the range. Pretty sweet bike, lots of cool upgraded features. We're gonna dive into the specs, but first, let's roll the B-roll. All right, awesome peeps. So again, this is the Wallke X3 Pro folding fat tire full suspension electric bike. And this is kind of a unique folder for a couple of reasons, but one of the coolest things right off the bat, we'll talk more about this, but just look at this thing compared to the typical folder. The tires here are 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires. Normally on folders, we'll see 20-inch tires, sometimes even 16-inch tires. And just having these full-size tires on this folding frame really makes this bike feel kind of like a regular electric bike or just any regular bike that you've ridden. It doesn't feel small, it doesn't feel compact, and yet it does fold in half, so it kind of offers a lot of versatility with what you can do with it and where you can take it. Now the starting price for the Wallke X3 Pro folder here is going to be $19.99 USD, $1,999 USD, and with that price point we've got one frame size. It's going to be this one right here. Just, you know, typically with folders you only have one frame size, and it does come in 3 different colors: green, silver, and a gray color right here. The company also does offer a 1-year comprehensive warranty, which is pretty cool. Not something you always see. Sometimes you see 90 days, sometimes even like something like 30. These guys offer a 1-year comprehensive. Something goes wrong with the battery, electrical system, components, whatever, they will, you know, they'll take care of you. They'll get you a new part shipped back, whatever it takes. They also do offer free shipping anywhere in the contiguous United States, which is awesome. That's kind of like just a nice little price savings. A lot of times you can kind of get to the checkout, you know, you've got your price in your head and then it's like, oh, 300 bucks for shipping. It ends up becoming that much more expensive. Not the case with this bike. So let's go ahead and dive into the specs here on the Wallke X3 Pro. We'll start back here with the motor. We're gonna have a 750 watt, pretty powerful hub motor here in the back. This is gonna have about 1,000 watts of peak power. We can see that on the display, which I'll show you guys here a little bit later. It also has 62 Newton meters of torque, so it's a pretty powerful, pretty peppy motor. And yeah, it does a good job of just getting you where you need to go without much effort. This thing really can be used kind of like a moped if you want. You don't even have to use a pedal assist, you can just use the throttle because this motor is that powerful. Now this 750 watt motor does bring this bike up to a top speed of 28 miles per hour. You can use that with the cadence sensing pedal assist here, or you can use that with the throttle here on the left-hand side of the handlebars. Now the pedal assist, it's gonna be a cadence sensor. Hopefully you can kind of see it right there by the bottom bracket, this little wire sticking out right here. Now, as with all cadence sensors, there's gonna be a little bit of a start and stop delay. So like when I start pedaling with this bike, there's kind of a delay from the time the motor actually activates. And when I stop pedaling, there's a little bit of a delay from the time that the motor shuts off. That is indicative of almost all cadence sensors. That's just kind of the name of the game for those. However, they are a more affordable component compared to torque sensors, which are more accurate, more responsive, but they cost a lot more. They're a lot more complicated. For the battery system here, we're gonna have a 48 volt system, 14 amp hour battery hidden inside the main tube here for a max range of about 60 miles. That's what the company estimates here. 60 miles for the max range with the pedal assist. Now, the reason they estimate the max range is so much for this bike is because they've got something called WPASS technology. And basically, we're seeing this pop up a lot on some of the more recent electric bikes that we have been reviewing. People have been calling it WPASS, EPASS, iPass. It's all kind of the same thing. It's basically the electrical system, the motor controller is collecting energy anytime you go over a certain speed, typically around 14 miles an hour. If you start coasting, it'll actually start collecting energy back from the motor. Same thing if you're going downhill, it'll kind of use regenerative braking with the motor and feed energy back into the battery. So anytime you're not pedaling, if you're coasting or going downhill, the bike is actually recharging itself. Now they've had that tech for a while. They've had regen braking for quite a while. It hasn't been very efficient. Supposedly with these new systems, they're a lot more efficient. From what we've tested with this iPass, EPass, WPass tech, it does make a difference in the overall range. So some really exciting stuff to kind of look forward to with these newer models of electric bike, and hopefully going forward we'll see this more and more, just to kind of help extend the range here with the existing battery tech. It's very cool stuff. Back here in the back, also the battery is going to be locking and removable. So it's inside, like I said, it's inside the main tube here. If I want to, I can fold this in half, have the key, unlock the battery, pull it out, charge it separately from the frame, which is very nice. Also the frame here, the bike overall does weigh, it's a little heavier than average. It's going to be 65 pounds around there, maybe 67 pounds. Slightly heavier than most electric bikes, especially for a folder, but it does make sense. It has a powerful motor. It's got a little bit larger than average battery, front suspension, rear suspension, full size fat tires. So yeah, that's kind of where the weight comes in there. Now in the back, we've got a Shimano Altus derailleur 8-speed here. This is a nice little upgrade. Typically the entry level is going to be a Shimano turning derailleur. Does it matter that it's an upgrade? Not really for a hub motor, but it's a nice little added upgrade feature, you know. It does help make the shifting a little bit smoother. And you also notice back here this small little piece, this little metal cage right here, it's a steel cage. It just protects the derailleur. If you tip this bike over to the right, if you crash it on the right-hand side, whatever, it just helps keep this derailleur from getting smashed. Small piece, it doesn't cost a lot, but it can really save this component here really, really nicely. Also on the chainring here in the front, you'll see that it's aluminum, which is nice. So it's kind of like a bash guard protector here. It's going to help protect the actual chainring itself from strikes. If you do hit this on a log, on a rock, whatever, it'll be hitting this aluminum piece here, this chain guard, instead of the actual chainring, so it won't mess up the teeth, which is very nice. I'll fold this here in a minute, but I do want to point out the pedals here on the X3 Pro are folding, just to kind of help minimize the footprint even more when you do fold it up. In the front here, we've got air suspension, which is really, really sweet. You typically don't see that except for higher end like mountain bikes, but we do have air suspension here on the X3 Pro, which is a really sweet little upgrade. Typically you're gonna see spring suspension. So with air suspension, it's just a little bit more of a cushy ride. It's just more of like, if you guys have if you've ridden air suspension versus spring suspension, you know what I'm talking about for the difference here. It's just, everything is just smoother with air suspension. It's just a very, very fluid, smooth suspension setup. You can also increase or decrease the pressure of the shocks by filling it up with air or letting the air out here on this side right here. And we also do have lockout on this side right there, and about 100 millimeters of travel here for the front suspension. It does a good job of mitigating bumps. You can even go off of some small jumps and stuff with this, and you can take it on some somewhat technical trails. I would just stay away from big air on this, simply because it is a folder. It's just not really designed for like serious off-road use. But again, you can take it on some decent trails here. It does have a front headlight. Not super powerful. Really, this is just going to help increase your visibility. It's going to help people see you when you're coming. It's not really going to help you see the trail. It's not bright enough for that. But it is there. It's a nice safety feature, so we'll take it. Now, back to the tires like we were talking about. We've got 26" by 4" fat tires here, just huge fat tires. And the cool thing about fat tires, we've been seeing these so much lately, is they've got a huge air volume, first of all. So they actually add some suspension qualities to the ride. So we've got this full suspension setup plus the fat tires. It just makes for a really, really cush ride. And that's gonna be true of pretty much any bike that's gonna use fat tires here. Also, the fat tires have a really wide tire patch. So it's gonna be able to float over like grass, sand, snow, mud, any sort of like less than ideal terrain. It really floats over that a lot better than the standard, 2.75, 2-inch wide, 1.75, whatever, the smaller width tires. The downside of having fat tires, of course, is because of that tire patch that we just talked about, it does increase the rolling resistance and the drag on this bike. So it does kind of eat up a little bit more battery. Just imagine like trying to power a monster truck versus like a Hot Wheels car. The bigger tires of the monster truck, they're just harder to turn, more rolling resistance. Same thing here with this bike, just because of the fat tires and with all fat tire bikes. One cool thing that Wallke did with the rims here is they punched out the rims. These little holes right here is basically just to make it look cooler, I think, but also it does save a little bit of weight here on the bike. On the other side, we've got the braking system. We're gonna have hydraulic disc brakes, front and rear, Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, 160mm rotors in the back, and 160mm rotor in the front right here, dual piston brakes. These are great brakes. Hydraulic is, always the way to go whenever you can. That's another pretty nice upgrade feature. Typically we see mechanical disc brakes. Hydraulic disc brakes, they do offer a nice advantage. It's just more stopping power. Definitely something you want to see. Now, because this bike does go so fast at 28 mile per hour top speed, that really powerful 750 watt motor, I wouldn't mind seeing 180mm rotors here just to give that just even more stopping power. But even still, with the setup that we have here, the stopping power is more than enough. Also, the brakes here, they do have motor inhibitors built in. So whenever I depress the brake levers here, it's gonna automatically cut power to the motor, ensuring I have the shortest possible stopping distance. So basically all I have to do when the motor is active is just barely tap it, and it's gonna automatically cut power. So good stuff there. Also, because these are hydraulic brakes here, I can actually adjust the resting position of the brake levers themselves, which is kind of nice. I can let them out, or I can bring them in some. In the back, we also have a rear suspension, because remember, like we talked about, this is a full suspension setup here. The rear suspension here, it's gonna be about 30mm of travel or so. It's not, it's not super springy, not super cushy, but it does help to smooth out the ride. It makes the ride more enjoyable. But again, just going back to the kind of philosophy of use for this bike, this is not like a serious hardcore trail bike. You can take it on trails, yes, but that's not what the suspension is set up for. It's really meant for just making the ride more enjoyable. And on that note, this is a really good commuter bike because of that longer range and because it does fold, so you can store it when you get to where you're going. It does also have a rear rack that you can install if you want. We didn't put that on, but it does come with that if you want to put that on to add even more functionality to this bike. One small thing I want to gripe about this bike, not a huge deal, but they sent the wrong diameter seat post here. So it was really loose in the seat post column. So what I had to do was just kind of, MacGyver it with some duct tape. As you can see right here, I've got the Gorilla tape on here, basically just to increase the diameter of the seat post, so I can have this clamp, securely keep it in place. So not a big deal. I'm thinking it's just the wrong one. Hopefully they'll get that sorted out. But I did want to point that out for you guys here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fold this thing so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so folding the Wallke X3 Pro, pretty easy stuff here. There's only one kind of folding point on this bike, and it's gonna be the main frame here. So this is gonna be a two-stage locking mechanism, which is great. So if this does come undone during travel, you still have to kind of pull that out to unlock it. So you got the one stage and then the locking mechanism to make sure it stays in place. So once this is undone, to fold it in half, all you have to do is literally just that. And it does have a bracket here on the bottom, which means it should be able to stand on its own. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, it stands on its own perfectly well. If you wanted to save even more room with this bike, because the handlebars don't fold, you could take off the front tire. However, it's not a quick release on this front tire, so you would have to bring tools with you if you need that extra little bit of space. Like we talked about, the pedals here, they do fold in as well if you want to you know, put this thing in a, you know, in your garage or in your car. If you need that extra little bit of space, you can get that with the pedals. To unfold it, same process here, just in the exact reverse. So we'll go ahead and boom, boom, and there we go. It is ready to go, ready to ride. Takes about, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds or so overall just to fold and unfold this bad boy here. All right, so before we take this for a test ride, let's go ahead and show you the display here on this bike. I also do want to point out that something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the derailleur here is another upgrade point is instead of the Shimano SIS Index thumb shifter, like that big kind of bulky thing up top here, we do actually have trigger shifters on the right hand side here, which is nice. It just makes shifting a lot easier. In the middle, we've got the display, full color LCD display. Long press of the power button will turn this on. Let's see, there we go. Kind of a standard setup for what it looks like. It looks like the Bafang displays here. Percentage indicator, battery indicator up here, the top left, very, very nice. Percentage is just way better than I think like a, you know, like a 5-bar, a 4-bar battery indicator because it gives you a much more precise, you know, readout of how much juice you have left. So very cool, you know, bonus points for that here. In the middle, we got the current speed, wattage right here beneath it, pedal assist level, tripometer, odometer, and then if you hit the info button right here on the independent button pad, it'll switch over to max speed 30.8 miles per hour, average speed 2.8, time ridden, and then back to the odometer. To switch pedal assist levels, it'll be up and down right here. If you want to hit the lights, long press, and if you want to get into the menu, you can hold the up and down arrows here, the plus and minus, and you'll see just real quick, it should go into the menu. And then from there, you can kind of tweak stuff whatever you want. You know, you can set a password, you can adjust the sensitivity, the pedal assist, whatever you want. You can kind of mess around with that when you get this bike yourself here. Oh, also on the right, it does come with a little phone holder. It's just a small little thing, but honestly, I've come to use phone holders on almost all of my electric bikes. For any electric bike that doesn't have it, I mean, I would recommend probably just grabbing one because it's such a great little tool to throw your phone up there and then use it as a navigation device. If you're going through the city, somewhere you don't really know very well, it's a nice way to use it. But look, awesome peeps, that is pretty much it for the review of the Wallke X3 Pro fat tire folding full suspension electric bike. Ah, man, I swear I'm surprised I've not messed that up yet. But before we conclude this review, I think it's time to take this bike out for a test ride. So here we go. All right, awesome peeps, that is pretty much it for the review of the Wallke X3 Pro folding fat tire full suspension electric bike. Man, that is hard to say in a row without messing it up. In summary, this thing starts for $19.99, $1,999 USD. Like we talked about, there is quite a bit about this bike that helps justify that price. There's a lot of little upgrade points that add up to an overall a pretty good quality folding fat tire full suspension electric bike. Really, this thing is going to excel for people who need a capable electric bike, something that can go off-road and on-road, something that can be used as a long-distance commuter, because remember, it does have that W-Pass technology that helps to extend the range of that battery for a max range of about 60 miles or so with the pedal assist, which is really, really good. So anybody who needs a bike that's going to be folding, that can actually fold in half, be stored in a small space, this is going to be a good choice for you guys, especially if you want a fat tire folding electric bike that is not, you know, super small. Because one of the cool things about this folder compared to a lot of the other ones that we review is the tires. Now normally, you know, like we talked about, you know, we'll get the 20-inch tall tires, sometimes even 16-inch. These are the normal size 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires. So just like we talked about the review, I mean, this thing just kind of feels more like a regular electric bike, but it does have, of course, the added benefit of being able to fold in half. You can take off the front tire and it just makes for a much smaller footprint, something you can actually throw in the back of your car, in your RV, whatever. So awesome peeps, I hope you dug this review of the Wallke X3 Pro folding fat tire full suspension electric bike. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day and we will catch you guys next time.